Hi everyone, welcome to the Better Minds channel. The goal of this podcast is to increase the awareness of body, mind, and spirit integration by engaging with the people who are invested in these fields. Today's guest is a holistic healing practitioner who has dedicated her life to helping you help yourself. From a very young age, she has been on a mission to explore and learn about the various healing modalities, from Reiki to acupuncture, EFT to CBT, and a whole range of other modalities. She's on a mission to make these available to those who seek them. It is my pleasure to welcome Roxane Naransamy.
Hi, Sudesh. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always a pleasure. But I have to start off with asking you something a little bit more personal to unpack your context, especially around being a healer, specifically around alternate therapies. Where did it all begin? How did it start? What was your motivation for thinking, okay, not only do I want to help people, but I want to look at it from a different perspective, a different angle, something that is not mainstream, and to delve into this whole complementary and alternative medication industry? If you could please share with us some of those insights and take us back into your personal world around how that story evolved.
We start off me being a very, very sickly baby. At the age of 5 months, I had my heart operation. And growing up being a very sickly kid, trying different medicines, alternate ways to get better, and nothing working. Growing into my adulthood, being part of corporate for about 20 years, and I was just sort of repeating a cycle. So my journey started off by looking for ways where I can heal myself, and that's how my adventure started, on finding all the alternate therapies and understanding it, and which just heightened my passion for wanting to help people. And that's exactly where it started. Was for me, I needed to learn about my body and me, and having parents come from a very old doctrinated belief system, not knowing alternate remedies and therapies. That's what pushed me more towards this field.
You mentioned that from 5 months you were not well, so it's something that very, very long standing, something that you suffered from. Well, when you're a child, you don't know about it, but as you age and you get a little bit bigger, enter those teenage years, there's that discomfort or that knowing that something's not right with my body, and the medication and the treatments that you were going on were not helping, but you still had to live with it up to a point, I suppose, more in your early adulthood, where you decided that, all right, this is something now I want to take into my own hands, because it appeared like all the remedies that you were going through at the time were just not delivering to what was required. Experience?
Absolutely. For me, going through many doctors, and the result is we don't know what's wrong, or there's nothing wrong. And once my personal healing journey began, I was exposed to all these different modalities and ways of just trying to understand what is happening with me. And my journey has allowed me to discover that it is actually quite core, very deep core trauma that is embedded within us, that I wouldn't say allow, but the cycle keeps repeating in your journey, especially when it comes to people that have chronic illnesses, and trying to understand why is it there, why does it keep repeating. And it is beautiful to actually uncover how amazing our bodies are, and what a huge factor trauma plays in our well-being.
So immediately I'm thinking, here's somebody who's had a really tough time growing up, facing a lot of obstacles around, I will say, conventional medication and the therapies that were available. What actually drove you to the alternate therapy? Did you not think to yourself, okay, I want to become a doctor so I can eventually understand this, whatever is happening to me, to uncover that. Or a psychologist, like, why did you sway towards the alternate therapy instead of the conventional type of treatments? Was it your environment? Was there somebody who influenced you? What actually pointed you to that direction?
There was always in my life, I always feel there's something more than what meets the eye, the ear, and what you hear. And our journeys are so personal that there cannot be any two journeys that are similar. And when I understood that I was only putting a band aid over my wounds, so to speak, that was not helping the problem. I needed to get to the core of what is actually happening. And I can run you through all of the illnesses that I experienced growing up, and understanding that that actually comes from a deeper, deeper level, a core level that needs to be uprooted, addressed, and then healed. In your healing journey, if I can say, there is no absolute. There's nothing that's constant. The only thing that's constant is change. And when you learn to understand that finding the balance is navigating through all of this, and there will always be a different level of something that happens in your journey. And this is for you to reflect back to see how far you have grown. And if something keeps repeating, then this is where you now know there's something else or deeper to address. And once you start, I like to call it defiling, you first categorize and then you start defiling all of these inner wounds and understanding them, the healing journey is continuous. And that's why it's a journey. It never starts and it never ends. It's just continuous.
What was the first thing that you tried? Like, what is the first kind of therapy that you came across and you thought to yourself, okay, let me start going for something like this? What was that experience?
So my first course that I took was Reiki with my Reiki master, Karen Lang. She runs the Soul Healing Academy in Victory Park. And Reiki is a form of Japanese energy healing. And for me, I done a lot of inner child work, a lot of inner wounds during that course, which allowed me to process a lot and integrate a lot that was happening in my world. And this just opened up so many other doors to so many different modalities. And at one stage, it was to fit in or be accepted. You needed certification to show, hey, I'm qualified to do this. So we are all born with gifts. It's a very controversial thing when people say, like, I was born with a gift and, I have this intuition. We are all empaths. We are all born with a gift. And that gift is for you to navigate your journey. And me being much more sensitive in my, can I say, my intuition, that what is this is what has led me to this part of now wanting to share this with other people and show people that yes, it's tough. Nobody tells you that, hey, look, it's not going to be easy. However, it is so worth it, in the sense that we we seek so many different alternatives, and for some it works, some it doesn't. And I believe that your healing can only happen as far as or as deep as you are willing to meet yourself to heal. And so I call it like my collection of knowledge, which I am now understanding it as wisdom, not knowledge.
Your first step was in Reiki and energy healing. And when I looked
Yes.
at all the different modalities that you're practicing, I mean, just to mention a few, and I'm sure this is probably only less than half of what you're doing: plant medicine, Karuna Reiki, as you mentioned, Tantrika Yogini, Taoism, meridian therapy, EFT, hypnotherapy, crystal, alchemy, cognitive behavioral therapy. I mean, I don't even understand half of that. But my question, though, is how would somebody who is now approaching this for the very first time. It's been This entire alternative therapy market is expanded so much to different types of therapies. For somebody who's coming into the very first time, how do they understand what these different therapies are, what they should be looking at, what is going to be effective for them, what is not going to be effective for them? And even straight off the bat, how do they decide whether they should even look at alternative therapies as a beginning point? In other words, should I first go and try all the conventional medication stuff? Or is this something I can start off with? And if it doesn't work, then I can look at other alternatives. So, how does somebody actually approach this whole therapy in terms of the different modalities? Just trying to navigate and understand what is going on, because there are so many different modalities. To a layperson, how would you explain that process? What they should be thinking about?
Okay, I believe in any choices that we make, it's always to follow your intuition. And this is the reason why there is so many different modalities, because what might work for me might not work for somebody else. It's to feel into it, to do research, to understand why you are called for this alternate healing in whichever manner. It's, people look at Google reviews and, what's rating, or how many people have been there, how long is the practice running, who are they affiliated with, and those are your starting points to make sure you are safeguarded. And like you mentioned, the industry has now become so huge, it's almost as if I buy a camera, I'm a photographer now. People are doing courses online and they feel that they are getting their attunements. Attunements is sort of your blessing from your teacher that you are qualified to actually practice the modality. And they have the certificates and they're just throwing it around, calling people in, and this is the part that people are very skeptical about. So anything, irrespective of what people are choosing in life, it's always to make sure you have full knowledge of what you are doing and that you understand. It must never ever be complicated or hard or a struggle. So that would be your first red flag that then this is not the right thing. There must always be flow. So if I can advise to follow those steps. And for me,
Okay.
usually it's the word of mouth. Someone that has experienced the therapy can give feedback to say, this is what I've experienced. And that is more likely a safer option as opposed to our internet and, reading Google reviews, etc.
What you said was that go and do the research, understand, use your intuition. These things are not top of the mind for most people. We live in
Yes,
a world where if something goes wrong, you want instant gratification. You want the solution straight away. You don't have time to mess around, and that's what the conventional medical industry provides. They're putting a lot of marketing hype into it, a lot of advertising, a lot of information and education to tell people this is what we can do for you. And it seems like the alternative therapy markets is doing exactly the opposite, in the sense that do your research, which is great. Like I said, it's counterintuitive. We should actually be doing the same thing for the regular medication, but we don't. And the alternate therapy market is saying, check out, follow your intuition. What do you think is right for you? Go and learn about it. See whether it's going to benefit. Try it out. And if we only apply that to the other aspect of our life, surely we will be better off. But unfortunately, that is not the case. There is very little information and education being happening around these alternate therapies. And generally, it is, like you said, word of mouth. Only when you're suffering with something for a long time, eventually somebody will come to you and say, have you tried Reiki? Have you tried EFT? Have you tried something like this? Because now the conventional medication just doesn't seem to be working. So there does seem to be a gap in terms of the approach that people should be using. It's almost accidental. It's right at the
yes,
end that when nothing else works, they come to alternate therapy. how do you guys as practitioners, what is it that you're doing to try and reverse that, so that people can start thinking about this as a top of mind kind of option, not the last resort, but closer to the first or the second resort? Is that a focus for you guys as an industry, to say, let us look at how we can also bring the information closer to people, so that they don't have to go through all the pain of trying out all of these other modalities, when in fact, yes, there's something that can work, that is effective, probably in the long run even less costly, which is going to be able to help you and more beneficial.
Absolutely. So I'll go back to the point that you mentioned on, people are irrespective, they're not going to do the research. It's like, they want things easy, they want a quick fix. And for me, my clients that come to me is usually at the point of they've got no other alternate. And unfortunately, this is, what we are trying to eradicate. So currently, I am part of a project called Hive, where we have collaborated with surgeons and medical doctors to form a wellness
Oh,
center
lovely.
to show people or like the community that there is no segregation between the medical and the spiritual. So these are very beautiful doctors that we are working with, where they understand that they cannot keep doing surgery, operating, keep, prescribing medication, because their patients are coming back to them with the same problem. And for them, they understand that there's a deeper healing that needs to happen on a different level, not on a physical level. So we are just this year launching, all of our events to bring, these two worlds together, to show them how it's interlinked and how they work and they fit. And so far,
Wow.
it's been quite successful, in the sense where a lot of people are inquiring, because the trust is in the medical world at the moment, because of the lack of knowledge of the alternate therapy. People love example. They will follow the leader, in the sense that I trust this doctor. He's been treating me for so many years, and if he suggested this, I'm going to give it a try. So the appeal then is to not to convince anybody, not to change, for them to understand, choosing the alternate therapy and what it can bring for them. And this way is, it causes the ripple effect. So people do not have to be in dire to come and seek help. So yes, there's many of these projects out there, but this is the particular one that I have my hand quite deep in and excited about it as well.
The hive mind. Yeah, I'm thinking of bees, and I suppose that was the whole intent, eh? A community
Absolutely.
of do-gooders, people who are keeping everything. Although they're insects, they're keeping everything going on this planet. So yeah, I love
Absolutely.
that analogy.
Absolutely. We all know that if we don't have bees, we will be extinct, in a couple of years. And the hive mind is the mind. That's exactly how a human mind is. And essentially trying to show people to get out of that paradigm and go into feeling and understanding. So yes, that's how we came up with the name.
I also like the fact that the objective is not necessarily just to influence people, it's for them to understand. So, earlier we spoke about the lack of knowledge and information, and like you said, the wisdom that surrounds all of these different modalities. With this project, you're bringing the best of all of the modalities that are available, in order to inform people, to educate them, so that they can make the decision, not necessarily to say you must do this or you must do that, but here's the entire menu of every all the possibilities that can help you. Now you decide what it is you want, because previously it wasn't the case. It was just the conventional medication and all of those different type of options, and the alternative stuff was very much, let's say, on the backseat, far in the rear. And you guys are now bringing that forward and making it available to people, for them to be able to understand what it's all about. So what a brilliant initiative, and I really hope that it goes a long, long way to getting people to understand and to start participating and knowing that these other options are available.
Absolutely. I'd
Okay.
like to touch on the modalities that we mentioned earlier on that I offer. And
Okay.
this is a huge incorporation of what I do. So when you refer to somebody as a healer, I don't like to use that terminology, as we are all healers of ourselves. I am a
Okay.
guide, a vessel, a conduit. And these are just practices to aid you. As once your mind starts developing and changing, there's a lot of changes that happen in your body as well. And all of these practices are just, these hectic names at the moment, but they are all designed to help us on our journey, to make it a little bit more easier, a little bit more fun, and, making it not so heavy. So when people see these different names and they get confused and they're like, oh my word, what is that? And that sounds hectic and it's going to go against my religion, and things like that. These thoughts go through people's minds. Understand that these are just labels. And with the proper guidance, you then start to understand the beauty of all of these and what they represent and how they help you. So just wanted to give a little bit more clarity on that it's looks hectic, but it's not so hectic.
I just love the way you explained the difference between a therapist or a healer and a guide, somebody who is basically joining you on your journey. The healing is already within you. And that's such an important point because a lot of people, most of us, we've grown up with believing that the power lies with somebody else. When you're sick, you go to a
Absolutely.
doctor, write your script, go to the pharmacy, you pick up the medicine. So all of these people are, as you are growing up, you believe that you have to go through this process in order to heal yourself. So in many ways, we've grown up believing that that power belongs to other people to able to heal you. And the way you put it
Absolutely.
is that healing is within every single one of us. And you guys are trying to reestablish that, put that belief back into humanity that we are just here to guide you. You already have that power within you. And yes, there are different modalities and they might look different and confusing, but at the end of the day, it's going to be what resonates with you because you have the power. We are just going to guide
Absolutely.
you and and find out, and you're going to figure out which one is going to work best for you, and you'll heal yourself. We are just going to be there to facilitate. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for clarifying that because I think that mindset of always I need help and somebody else is going to provide that help is so strong and so relevant in our lives that we forget that we have this innate ability to able to heal ourselves. Brilliant.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what we spoke about, people not sure of what modalities to choose or what sessions they should, go for, what's going to work for them. Everything is divine timing. And if you are directed towards somebody that has misguided you, it's just a beautiful lesson, you know, in the sense that you a little bit wiser now. You understand it was something that you had to go through and understand. I don't believe that there's anything that's right and wrong. The only wrong thing is when you are hurting somebody else. I believe that's the wrong thing. And you pick yourself up, and you continue. And this is the beautiful part about the journey, is that they are the dark moments, they are the lonely moments, this is where people get lost and confused and the depression sets in, because everything in our world is changing, especially our kids and our teenagers. They are allowed to express themselves and say what they want and question, as opposed to when we were growing up and we could not even, we were just to be seen, not heard as children. So this is now forcing parents to actually step back and have a look. Okay, maybe we should start changing things. Maybe we should look at alternate ways. And this is the beautiful thing, where the cycle, is starting to can I say shift now. The dynamics of everything is starting to shift. So people are becoming more aware of their wellness and their state of mind. and where they go and what they'd like to do. And this has just been a new drive for people. And so this is the part where it comes in of people capitalizing on that, of people that are desperate and in need of help. And you have people going for Reiki and so forth for like 15, 20 years. And this is the part where people become uneasy. Yes. So essentially, as a guide, I'm to give you tools so that you are no longer to need me or anyone else. So this brings in the skepticism of, should I be doing this? People are making money off this. That is so expensive. So in any industry, there will be the cutthroat. There will be that dynamic that separates. But I believe that that is all changing. I believe that. And I have faith in that. I'm always in the positive of we we can speak about the things that are uneasy in our world and we're not happy about, but we don't dwell there too long. We change our perspective and then we move forward.
And so the last thing that I wanted to cover is also, again, you touched on it here and there, is self-help. All healing at the end of the day, from what you've explained, is self-help. But the approach is different. So some of the modalities you will be guiding people, whereas the others you actually have classes. So I've seen you advertise retreats and workshops and things like that. So the approach to that is different. One is more a one-on-one, whereas the other is more at a group level where you're imparting skills to people so that they can then use those to be able to heal themselves away from, let's say, without any dependencies. They can do it themselves. How do these two measure up in terms of people's responses to them? How willing are they to put in the effort to learn that? How affordable is it? How effective is it? If you could just talk about those two different approaches to healing.
Okay. On the one on one sessions, this is usually people that wanting to understand more of themselves in their journey, which is very private. And then you have the other aspect of the clients that feel they need the tribe, they need people around, and this contributes to them healing. So offering, or working with a client one on one, offering a workshop and offering a retreat holds different dynamics for different people. Some people do well with other people, some people don't do well with other people. So this is why let me speak in the I. That's why I've designed it in this manner. So people are then able to express themselves in whichever way they feel comfortable. And that goes with all my sessions as well. It's all uniquely designed to the person. In the, say, 180 clients I've had over the past few years, there hasn't been one session that's been the same. And fitting in now the different, these different dynamics of how people can heal either alone or together seems to be, if I can put it this way, it explains that nobody is an introvert or an extrovert. We are extroverts with the right people, and we are introverts with the people that are, we do not feel comfortable with. So creating these different settings is allowing people to be comfortable to express themselves and know that it's a safe environment. So if that answers the question.
I like the thought of that there's no introvert or extrovert, and it really just depends on who's in the room, you know. And then all of a sudden, the
And this is
extrovert comes out.
absolutely, and this is the thing about, everything, even everything that we spoke about as well. It's how you perceive it, how you understand it. Because for me, knowing the journey is one thing, walking the journey is another thing. And then actually dancing the dream is also a completely different thing. It's how we look at it, our perspective. For example, you get a coach and you get a mentor. A lot of people are like, what is the difference? Coach is very like broad spectrum of, can guide you on almost anything and everything, as well as a mentor. But a mentor is more personal in the sense they've had a similar journey to yours, and they are able to give you that guidance, where it's needed. And people have an ideology of, what this is all about. And it's not something that can be even explained or expressed. It's something that needs to be experienced and felt. And a lot of people have the disconnect there already. It's like, what are you telling me? Why are you saying I need to feel? I'm feeling already. There's always that sort of that rejection, that fight within them. And I believe it's always our subconscious. When we try to find healing, it finds something in our part to like, oh, we're not ready yet. We're in the comfort zone. We don't want to move from here. We're happy here. And then something happens again. And they're like, no, 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 I'm really not happy in this place. And then there will come up the part of you that will, cause something to happen for you to have this healing. And it's for you to persevere and to push through that. And that's what I love about my work is I get to show people how to have fun by healing themselves. It doesn't have to be all so serious. Understanding the magic and the beauty that you are already the divine masterpiece. You are pure awareness already. We seek, 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 and we continue seeking because we never get what we want. So the only way out is in. And understanding that is, sitting with yourself, understanding who you are. What do you like? What don't you like? What's your favorite perfume? What's your favorite color? You know, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What's your passion? Are you living your dream? What is your manifestations? People, use that term so loosely these days. It's do you know how to manifest? What is it? People think it's like some magical thing that's going to fall from the sky. But understanding the signs, the law of attraction and, fitting all of that together, it becomes, whoa, rocket science for the brain. So people are like, oh, it's too much. But understanding that once you allow yourself to feel it and not try to understand it with the mind, it becomes so much more simple and easier as our mind just complicates things for us all the time. And we got to find ways to, okay, it's like, sort of like a trickster of, okay, how am I going to beat you now? So essentially, we don't want to advise people that, we say, oh, you can't control everything. Yes, you can. You can control your mind, actually. That is the one thing that you can do. It all starts there. So this is the thing. It's a fun journey. It's all about laughter and love and fun and embracing. And people will beg to differ to say, but I got hijacked or somebody robbed me, going to the extreme. But understanding of how we actually bring this into our world and, taking ownership of that, taking responsibility of you are where you are because of your choices and that it's okay that we've made mistakes and that's how we learn. And we look back and say, okay, I've done this, and that, and you see your growth, and you give yourself a little tap on the shoulder, and like, okay, I'm doing good, and then you continue, and things just become more in flow. This is how we find flow. So finding a therapist that can explain you, what is this journey about? What is this awakening speaking about? What is this new earth they speak about? People are trying to comprehend it, and it just seems to get more and more and more complicated. It's the unlearning, which is the difficult part. The doctrination and the old belief systems of where we come from and how we were brought up. The unlearning is the difficult part. The learning part is the simple. It's remembering just who we already are, which is pure divine love.
I heard a Buddhist quote something to the effect that all it's about is everything that we've learned, we have to now start stripping away and unlearning. And as an adult, that's what we have to do. Because as a child, as we're
Absolutely.
growing up, the environment is busy shaping us and just driving the direction we take in our lives. And when we reach that point and we start asking a lot of questions, we have to actually do the reverse and start stripping all those layers away. And like you said, we have to start unlearning. So thank you for sharing with us the different approach, whether it's going to be a one-on-one, whether it's in a group. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's just what the person is actually comfortable with. Some people prefer to be part of a community. They are able to express themselves. They're able to work with the energy of other people, whereas others,
Yes,
they don't feel comfortable in that environment. They want to able to be in a safer kind of space, one to one, where they know it's just themselves. They can feel much more comfortable and confident then in expressing themselves and not worry that anything is going to be barging in on them, so to speak. So it's really the same. It's just a personal preference at the end of the day. And sure, at the end, your health, your life is all your responsibility, and we may not be able to control everything around us, which is totally impossible because life is so dynamic, and there's a bonds that's happening, there's connections that's happening, that's changing everything all the time. So there's no ways that any one person really is in charge or able to dictate what's happening outside of you, but within yourself you can take control of that. I think you also used the nice phrase that to go out you have to go in. So taking charge of that component of your own, take responsibility for your own self is so important, especially when it comes to well-being. And well-being doesn't necessarily always meaning fixing what is wrong. It could also simply mean just staying on the right path and making it more and more robust.
absolutely. I love that you mentioned, it's not only about healing things that are wrong, it's also embracing. And it's not even, trying to get back to who you were, but reinventing a new you. As you've got new tools in your bag and you've got a whole blank canvas now, it's a whole new road, and it's yours to do with what you choose, and you can make it as beautiful and easy as you would love it to be. You have that choice. So people also, just want to heighten the experience of life, and those are people that comes in my space as well as clients. It's just like they're so hungry for knowledge. They just want to know more. What can I do to improve? How do I do this? So it's also the curiosity, because it's almost, and that's the addictive part. That's the only addictive part of, once you understand the flow, you just want more of it, more and more, because it's so easy, it's light. But the important thing is never to cling to the attachment of the outcome. And if I can bring in the
Okay.
manifestation of how we need,
Okay.
being specific about, because if you don't actually know what you want, the universe won't know what you want either. So if I manifest, I would like a BMW. Sure, I would get it, but it might not come with an engine or any car seats in it. But my manifestation was a BMW, but I was not very specific. So the guidance of understanding, that you have an idea, it's a thought, and our thoughts are so powerful. It sends out this huge energy. It's like, oh, I want that beautiful condo, on the beach. And then you're specific. You got to believe it's yours already. The belief is important. And the third step is, okay, what am I actively doing to get the condo? It's not just going to fall from the sky. And this is what creates this flow for you, because you are now navigating your journey a little bit more carefully on being much more specific of what you would like. So, this is all the magical things of it when you actually understand and what it means, and to have fun with it.
So, you said that you have to dissociate yourself from the expectation also. And I wanted you just to elaborate on that because growing up, people always tell you, you got to know exactly what you want, and it creates this huge expectation as well. Outcome is everything. The reason why you're
Yes.
doing anything is for the outcome. And what you said just now was disassociated. You didn't use those words, but you said like, no, just
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about the outcome. Don't be attached to that outcome. How do you actually do that? How do you actually act doing whatever? Because you're setting a goal for yourself and
Yes.
you've set a plan as well. And all of that is done because you're working towards something. And it feels counterintuitive now to say, all right, you've set something in motion, but don't worry about where it gets to. If you reach your goal or not, or whatever's going to happen, just unattach yourself from that and get involved in the process. If you could maybe just elaborate a little bit more on that.
Okay, I'll give an example, sort of an example of somebody comes to visit you and they bring a gift. You have the choice to accept the gift or not. The other analogy, which I'm getting to the end of that, is if I am to give a gift to you, there should be no expectation that you are going to like the gift or that you want the gift. Essentially, my intention to give you the gift is that I felt within me that this is something beautiful I'd love to give to you. But if I cling to the end result of you have to say thank you to me, you have to be appreciative of that gift, my intention is not pure. So that goes to not clinging to what the outcome is, because our minds are so minuscule of what we actually want and would love. And what is actually meant for us is, so much greater than that. So if you keep the attachment to or cling to the outcome of this is how I want it to be, when you do get it, there's that disappointment because in your mind, this is how you wanted it and it didn't come out that way. But we're not changing our perspective to see, okay, so if I maybe didn't want that so badly, I could have then seen the opportunity that it's actually bringing towards me. So to summarize that is we just have an idea of what we would like and what we want, but it is actually much bigger than that. It is actually much more massive, or I like to use the word magical, than what we perceive something to be. So it's the saying that expectations reduces joy is very much that. That is the part of surrendering as well. Is if I have a 50 rand, if I found a 50 rand, my life before I found that 50 rand and my life after I found the 50 rand is still the same. So am I going to now say, okay, what am I going to use this 50 rand for? How does this 50 rand make a difference in my life? So to understand that being whole and complete already, and then nothing outside of you defines you, that allows you to understand not to cling to the outcome. It's an understanding that happens within you of you do not attach this feeling of this is how I want it to be and this is how it's going to look, because then that disappointment will come in your space. But if you leave room to see what is, there for you, you are avoiding that disappointment and you are actually then growing and learning like, okay, I'm leaving room for not disappointment, but to see where else I can grow. If, yes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can see how this is so much more different than going to school, right? 1 + 1 is equals to 2, and that answer doesn't really change. But whereas what you just said now, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm going to really need to reflect on this quite deeply before I fully get it. And I'm going to need to work with it for some time, like you said, to experience it. And that's only when
Mhm.
it then really touches a part of you that you can work with. As a concept and a theory, it sounds very abstract at the moment, but once you bring it into your life, and it takes time and it takes effort to bring it into your life, that's when it really starts resonating.